Your engine feels weak when you accelerate, struggles to gain speed, or suddenly loses power under load. Don't ignore it. From fuel and air problems to ignition faults and a restricted exhaust, there are several things that can make a healthy engine feel completely powerless. In this video, we'll go through the most common causes you should check first. 1. Clogged air filter. The air filter is considered the engine's lungs. However, if the filter becomes clogged due to dirt and dust, or even due to oil buildup caused by a failure in other components, such as the PCV valve, the engine will have difficulty getting the proper amount of air. This becomes especially noticeable when you want to accelerate or press hard on the accelerator pedal. You will feel a noticeable loss of engine power and reduced acceleration even when the accelerator pedal is fully pressed. 2. Dirty or faulty MAF sensor. The MAF sensor is essentially the engine's fuel mixture meter. The engine control unit relies heavily on the signals sent by the MAFS sensor regarding the amount of air flowing into the engine. But what happens if the MAFS sensor is dirty or faulty? In this case, the ECU will not be able to determine the actual amount of air entering the engine. As a result, the ECU will not deliver the proper amount of fuel through the fuel injectors according to the amount of air coming in. This prevents the engine from achieving the proper air-fuel mixture needed for the best engine efficiency and performance. As a result, engine performance and acceleration can be significantly affected, especially at high speeds and under heavy engine loads. 3. Weak fuel pump or low fuel pressure. If the air filter is the engine's lungs, then the fuel pump is the engine's beating heart. Any problem or weakness in the fuel pump will have a clear effect on engine performance and power. The fuel pump is required to deliver specific amounts of fuel that vary according to engine speed and the engine's fuel demand. But what happens if the fuel pump becomes weak and is no longer able to deliver the amount of fuel the engine needs? This will certainly affect engine power and acceleration. When you press hard on the accelerator pedal and accelerate suddenly, you may notice a lack of strong response and a significant and noticeable loss of engine power. But pay attention, the fuel pump itself may be working properly, and the same problem can occur due to a faulty fuel pressure regulator. The regulator may fail to maintain the fuel pressure required by the engine and may return a large amount of fuel back to the fuel tank. 4. Clogged fuel filter or fuel injectors. The fuel filter is a very important component in the fuel system before the fuel enters the engine, as it filters and removes contaminants. However, over time, the filter can become partially clogged, causing restricted fuel flow. As a result, the engine may have difficulty accelerating with reduced performance and power. A clogged fuel filter can also make the engine difficult to start. The same applies to the fuel injectors, because most fuel injectors have internal filters and screens. If these screens become clogged due to dirt and contaminants, the fuel injector will not be able to deliver the amount of fuel needed to create complete combustion and produce the required engine power and torque. As a result, you may notice a significant loss of engine power and poor acceleration. 5. Ignition system problems. Ignition coils, wires, spark plugs. Having the correct amount of air as calculated by the ECU and the proper amount of fuel for that amount of air inside the combustion chamber is not enough to produce a strong and efficient combustion that provides the required engine power and torque. There is another very important element, which is the strength of the ignition spark. Just because the spark plugs are producing a spark does not necessarily mean that everything is working properly. The spark produced by the spark plugs must be strong enough to create complete combustion of the mixture inside the combustion chamber and produce the required engine power and torque. But what causes the spark from the spark plug to become weak? This can be caused by a problem with one of the components of the ignition system, such as the ignition coils, ignition coil wires, or the spark plugs themselves. In the end, you should remember this: strong spark equals strong combustion equals strong engine power and good acceleration. 6. Clogged catalytic converter. One of the most important principles in the operation of internal combustion engines is this: the faster and more air you bring into the engine and the greater and faster amount of exhaust gases you remove from the engine, the more power, torque, and acceleration you can get from the engine. To achieve this, the exhaust system must be completely clear without anything restricting the flow of exhaust gases out of the engine, such as a clogged catalytic converter. A clogged catalytic converter, caused by carbon and oil buildup, restricts the flow of exhaust gases out of the engine. This reduces the available space for the fresh combustion mixture, which can cause a noticeable loss of engine power and acceleration. And the bigger problem is that when the catalytic converter becomes severely clogged, it can create what is known as back pressure on the engine. If this condition continues for a long time, it could potentially damage the engine completely. 7. Vacuum leak or intake air leak. A vacuum leak or air leak in the intake system can also cause the engine to lose power during acceleration. If unmetered air enters the engine through a cracked hose, damaged intake boot, leaking gasket, or another point after the MAF sensor, the ECU may receive incorrect airflow information. This can disturb the air-fuel mixture and cause the engine to run too lean, especially under certain operating conditions. As a result, you may notice hesitation, rough idle, poor acceleration, and a noticeable loss of engine power when you press the accelerator. A significant intake air leak can become even more noticeable when the engine is under load. 8. Low engine compression. Even if all the conditions for combustion are properly met, including the correct amount of air and fuel, a strong spark, smooth airflow into the engine, and smooth exhaust flow out of the engine, something can still cause a loss of power and acceleration. This can happen when part of the power produced by combustion escapes from the combustion chamber instead of being used by the engine. This is what we refer to as low engine compression. This can happen for several reasons, including worn or damaged piston rings, a damaged head gasket, a crack or break in the piston or cylinder head, or intake and exhaust valves that are not sealing properly. You can determine this by performing an engine compression test. 9. Incorrect ignition timing. Incorrect ignition timing can also cause a noticeable loss of engine power, especially during acceleration. If the ignition timing is too advanced or too retarded, the air-fuel mixture will not burn at the optimal point in the combustion cycle. This reduces the efficiency of the combustion process and can make the engine feel weak or sluggish when you press the accelerator. In some cases, you may also notice hesitation, poor acceleration, increased fuel consumption, or even engine knocking. That is why incorrect ignition timing should be considered when an engine loses power under load. 10. Throttle body or accelerator pedal problems. A problem with the throttle body or accelerator pedal can also cause poor acceleration. The throttle body controls how much air enters the engine, while the accelerator pedal sensor tells the ECU how much power the driver is requesting. If the throttle body is dirty, sticking, or not responding correctly, the engine may not receive the proper amount of air during acceleration. A faulty accelerator pedal position sensor can send incorrect signals to the ECU, causing delayed throttle response, reduced engine power, or even limp mode. In some vehicles, the problem may not be mechanical at all. It could be caused by an electrical issue, a wiring problem, or a faulty sensor. That is why checking the throttle position data with a diagnostic scanner can help determine whether the throttle is responding correctly to accelerator pedal input. You can watch all the videos covering the causes of poor acceleration mentioned in this video. You will find all the related links in the description box. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to AutoFix Zone and turn on the notification bell so you receive a notification whenever a new video is uploaded. This was AutoFix Zone. See you in the next video.